The Currently podcast is produced and recorded at Born in June Creative Studios in Los Angeles. Born in June Creative helps movers and shakers tell their stories. Hey Josh, what's the first thing I should do if I want to start a new business, side hustle, podcast, blog, or new project in 2018?
Invest and focus on your branding. Your branding is the soul and essence of your project. That's the foundation of what you're going to build the rest of your venture on. It's the most important part.
And we really want to help you all make 2018 the year where you finally make it happen for yourself and you stop taking this from an idea or something you talk about with friends and family to something that you're actually doing in real life. And that's why at Born in June Creative, we created a new package for new clients who are starting out where we can build you a website, we can work on your branding, and we can get you started with great copy to set your project on the right foot.
Exactly. Let's make this project something amazing by building that solid foundation in 2018.
You can get a hold of us on our website at borninjunecreative.com or on Instagram at borninjune. Thanks. Welcome to the Currently podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Aime. We're here for a deep dive into current events, culture shifts, personal development, and social good, in conversation with me and interesting people from all walks of life. This show was created to make us think a little bit more about life's biggest questions, the world we want to create, and what this moment in time means for our generation. Let's leave the small talk behind and make sense of the now together. Let's get started. Today's episode's a little different and it's very close to my heart. It's a pretty raw conversation about what the past year has been like since I left my job. And I share some feelings, some anxiety, some of the highs, some of the lows. And then we also talk about kind of what our goals are for 2018. I think about this time of year, we want to enjoy the holidays. And it's also a good time to think about, what are the things that we did good? What are the things we want to be better at? And kind of what are our new hopes, dreams, and aspirations that we're going to make happen in 2018. Thank you so much for listening. I want to give you a quick reminder about Podcasterio Fest happening on November 19th at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. If you got your ticket already, they are sold out, but just want to give you guys a quick nudge to make sure that you join us on that day. And finally, I want to let you guys know that I'm doing a contest. Our last episode with Monica Rivera was really well received, so I'm actually giving away a copy of her Chingona Manifesto and her book that she co-authored with a bunch of other amazing Latinx women on Latina empowerment. I'm actually giving away a copy to people who leave me a review, so that's pretty much all you have to do. Leave me a review, follow me on Instagram at BetsyIMSC, and then you can find out if you were the winner. So to clarify, leave me a review, and I'm going to enter you guys based on username. Thank you so much, and let's get to the show. I have my recurring and almost favorite guest back in the studio with me. By studio, I mean our home office, Joshua Sandoval.
Hello. Again.
So we're here to talk about the fact that it's coming on a year that I left my job. I left my full-time job. And then in a few weeks, it's going to be a year that you left your job. So we want to give an update. This is a semi-selfish episode, a little bit for ourselves, and also to share kind of some of the realities that we've encountered in the past year. Some of them good, some of them challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think what's been the most surprising thing for you about being self-employed?
That you have less time, for sure. When I was working my 9 to 5, I also, was working on client work as well on top of that. And I figured that when I left my 9 to 5, I would have more time. And that's completely the opposite of that reality that I created in my head. I had less time. Also, that there are no days off. There's no, I'm sick, I can't work. There's no weekends. There's no nights.
You definitely can't be sick with the same kind of peace of mind that you were sick before, where you go home and you're like, cool, I'm going to catch up on Netflix now. I got really sick in the beginning of the year when we had just started out. And I remember I was out for 2 weeks. And it's like my body was like, oh, cool, you're not working crazy like hours and having 3 jobs now. So let me just get sick on you. And I got this really bad flu. And it felt really scary because it felt like, oh, shoot, if you're not working, like you don't have sick days. Like it was kind of another reminder of not having a safety net anymore.
Yeah, that anxiety is something that's constant, but it also keeps you in line. And it also keeps you disciplined to understand that, hey, if you call in sick, there's no calling in sick. There's no sick hours. There's no, vacation time. It's about having to really delve deep inside of yourself to find that strength, to keep the business going, to make sure that you have money for the next month. There's no, like Betsy said, there's no assurance. There's no, hey, this is still going to be here next month. So it definitely keeps you, hungry and definitely very, very present in everything that you're doing and making sure that everything you do has a purpose.
Yeah, and I think that we wanted to talk about this specifically because I wrote an article for Girl Boss recently, and I talked about, some of the lessons that I've learned, and that inevitably I think we've learned some of those together. And then I interviewed some really cool women, just because it was Girl Boss. I interviewed some cool women and talked to them a little bit about their own journey. And one of the statistics I encountered while researching for the article is that 44 million Americans, a lot of them people who are in the millennial generation between 18 and 34, 35, they have side hustles.
Wow.
Which is like a really large amount of people who are working full-time jobs and also trying to build something. And I don't think all of them are trying to do it with the purpose of leaving their job. Some of them, it's just genuinely, supplementing their income because they need additional income, which is a whole nother conversation about salary and pay inequities. And some of them, though, they really want to make it their full-time profession, which is kind of what we did, right?
Exactly.
So what has been the best thing, you think, about being self-employed?
Just the fulfillment of understanding that what you're doing is adding value to your clients' businesses, to themselves, to their projects. It's super fulfilling that when you give something to somebody and they're super excited about it, when you hear the excitement in their voice, or you could see it in their email because they see that what you're giving them is amazing. A lot of times when you work for somebody else, you don't really feel that. You feel like you're creating something that is you're not really going to see the excitement from the client or see the end result. But when you're able to give that to somebody and you see that, it's super fulfilling because you know that they understand that this is going to take their business, themselves, their product, their service to the next level. And that's one of the best feelings for, working for yourself and being able to experience that firsthand.
And I think one of the lessons for me has been learning how to navigate kind of the emotions that go behind it. I had a friend who told me that about being an entrepreneur and having her business, that if she knew what she was getting into, she probably wouldn't have done it. So it was kind of a good thing that she dived in head first, without really thinking about it. It was actually one of our previous guests, Jennifer Lopez from an episode, and so you can check out that episode on iTunes. And I think that that's pretty significant, right? Because it does take a little bit amount of a type of personality to take on that level of risk.
For sure.
And I'm normally for a big part of my life, I was a pretty risk averse person. And then I had a child, and that just makes you like, if I can do this, I can pretty much do anything. And so I think that's kind of the mindset, right? And so I think that's why the side hustle has become so popular, because that gives you a way to kind of have your foundation and have your base of security, and then you can start building this other thing. My little sister was talking to me about how she just started college, this is her first semester, and how she's interested in doing business. And then she told me something like, my dad likes being an entrepreneur, or always had like some kind of like small side hustle. So did her mom, my stepmom. And then I told her, well, if you really want to learn business, I'm sure that you can learn a lot of it if you do a minor in business. But the best way to run a business is to learn about running a business is to actually run a business, right?
Yep.
What is something you would tell somebody who's like just starting out in their journey? What if somebody who's like where you were a year ago, they're there now?
I would tell them two things. First off, if you're starting a project, if you're starting a service, if it's something where you're working on maybe trying to, promote yourself or even a business, you need to focus on the things and set a solid foundation. One of the first things on that is you need to have solid branding. Branding is basically the soul of your project, of your business, of yourself, of this venture. And if you don't have a solid branding foundation, you're not building it on anything. It's almost like you're building it on top of water where it could change, the form changes and things like that take away from the value of what you're doing. And subconsciously, when people don't see consistency, that it's harder for you to grow your business. The second thing I would tell myself is, hey, work with people who are experts in what they do. You can't do everything. It's just impossible. I mean, you could try, and if you do, at best, you could be good at everything rather than being great at a few things and collaborating with people who are great at what they do. I can give you an example. One of my side projects, and it's not even a side project now, it's becoming a side business on top of our creative agency, is the Ultras 94, which will start off as a soccer blog, but now we actually been hired on a few projects to create branding and create deliverables for an up-and-coming company. And I'm working with a great photographer. He's my partner. His name's Christian Garay. Sorry for messing up your name, Chris. And he does great work. Could I have learned what Chris does? Of course I could have learned, but that would have taken years, taken more time, taken away from my expertise in branding and design and art direction. Why not work with somebody who's fantastic at that? And when we work together, we're able to create an amazing brand that is growing and gaining attention. We're working on this very exciting project right now with a new sock company, which is amazing. We just started this at the beginning of the year, and to have this already going on is only because we've collaborated together. So that's something else I would tell myself is if you're going to do something, you can't do everything. Find great people who are passionate and amazing at what they do, and be amazing at what you do, so that when you do come together, you're doing fantastic work on a consistent basis.
Do you feel like there was a part of you in the beginning who felt like you had to do everything or know everything?
Absolutely. I also think it might have been an ego thing. When you start something, a lot of times your businesses are your baby, and you know best, and you know what it needs, and you have what it takes. And I think a lot of times that's a fatal flaw. I see it a lot of times with businesses and even clients that we work with, where they have a hard time letting go. And when they eventually all do, which is why they're successful and they work with people like us, they see the value in that, and they learn. But it's a lesson we've all learned. It's a lesson we learn with the studio, and it's fine. These are all growing pains. But if you can understand that from the beginning, you're going to have an advantage that's going to raise a percentage of your business being successful. This might be a scary statistic, but only 20% of businesses last. And I think that's only after a year or 2 years. And then after 10 years, that percentage goes all the way down to 4%. I think the difference is people who are ready to collaborate and work with people and, let people, work in their lane. When you do those kind of things, it's going to make everything successful for you, and then also give you brain space to focus on growing your business, which is another key that I think any brand understands, or any business understands, or anybody who's working on anything, is that you need to have that brain space to focus on building and creating business so that you can still give life to what you're doing. Yeah,
I think that's a lesson that I knew it on a theoretical level, because in my last job, we used to say that you needed to be spending at least 20% of your time on strategic planning and kind of thinking ahead and mapping ahead to the next few months or the next year. But then when you're actually running a business, to your point, like, you don't have HR anymore. You don't have, like, you're your own accounts payable. Like, you're, your own accountant and your own bookkeeper, and setting up a bank account, which was actually super easy with not bank account, I'm sorry, like for us setting up the LLC and doing all that. LegalZoom was really helpful because they actually do everything for you, and they really kind of help guide you through the process. This is not a sponsored episode, by the way. This is just generally me saying, like, this was a super helpful tool, and I know that a lot of my other friends who've started businesses or side projects and formed LLCs, they've actually used LegalZoom as well, which is how I heard about it to begin with. But you realize then, oh shoot, like I can't just be, in our case, because we're doing a service, like I can't just be focused on clients and like the running of the business. I have to like work on the business, no, work in the business and then work on building additional business. And I think that has been like one of the biggest lessons, right? I mean, we were just reading that in our case, because we're service based, that the life cycle of a client is about 9 months. So
Yeah.
you tend to keep clients about 9 months, because then, you know, whatever, for whatever reason. And that's part of what makes this interesting, because I think every day is different and we're not doing the same thing and we're not always dealing with the same people or the same types of businesses. But that's also what makes it a little scary, to be quite honest.
Yeah, but scary is a good thing. 'Cause scary keeps you on your toes. It forces you to continue to be on a constant growth mindset, evolving, you know, changing, doing what it takes for your business to be successful. And I think that's what sets anybody apart. Anybody who's willing to put in the time, make the sacrifices to do that, you're going to continue to be successful. It takes time. You know, there's a quote that I recently came across, which is, greatness is not instant.
Oh, yeah, I think it's on your desk.
Yeah, I put that on my desk just as a reminder every day that this takes time. It's not easy. It's hard, and it's supposed to be hard. You know, it's that whole adage is that if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm flexing a new muscle that isn't quite developed yet. So I think, you know, Mia, your daughter, my stepdaughter, and James, our son, I think they need to start businesses now so they can
for sure.
learn. They can kind of learn already. Because I think the way the world is going, you know, I've talked about this before, right? Automation and robots and all this other stuff. I feel like, you know, a lot of the jobs that maybe, I mean, our parents would assume a certain type of security from their jobs.
Don't even exist anymore.
Don't exist anymore. And then I suspect that some of the jobs that we take as they're always going to be around, you know, they're not going to exist anymore when, you know, the kids we're raising now are grown up. So I really think that for many different reasons, I think learning how to build a business or learning how to kind of be more self-sufficient in that way is a valuable skill set to teach the next generation. And this has been like a really good, amazing learning experience for me. And I think for a long time, one of my big takeaways is also that sometimes when we're in a situation, we envision that when we're in the next situation, it's all going to be good and it's going to be easy, or it's going to be like, oh my God, like it's awesome, I did it. And to your point, I think this year has been like, I mean, I'll admit it, pretty like emotionally grueling on me.
Yeah, me too. But like I said, you know, I feel very grateful that we have this opportunity because, like I said before, if you're not growing, if you're not evolving, you're going to stay the same. And as we all know, the world is constantly growing. It's constantly moving. So if you want to keep up and if you want to survive, you need to have that attitude. You know, me and Betsy, we're constantly every day looking for resources, looking for inspiration to keep it going because it's not easy every day. You know, a lot of days and most days, it's really hard to sit down in front at our desk and do this work, but we do it. And understanding that it's not just about the business, it's not just about, you know, finding the business. It's also about working on yourself and having that strength, you know, having the energy, being emotionally balanced, spiritually balanced, you know, doing that just even if you don't have a side hustle or your own business and have a 9 to 5 is hard, but it's essential when you are running your own business.
Yeah, because the mindset and the culture, you're the one building it. You know, when you work at a company, like you're kind of a part of that culture and a part of that mindset. But when you work for yourself, you're the culture and you're the mindset. So if you spend 2 weeks kind of in a slump, that's going to reflect in your, you know, payable accounts a month later or 3 months later.
Yeah, or even in you satisfying your client. You know, a lot of what we do is, you know, branding, marketing, email marketing, creating assets for clients, you know, etc. But at the core of what we're doing is keeping our clients happy. And you got to think about it like this. If you're not happy and balanced, how are you going to keep your clients in that kind of way? You could kill yourself and put hours upon hours every day into what you're doing, which what we do. But if you just do that and you're not focusing on yourself, you're going to burn out.
Yeah, I think one of the things I want to say is don't leave your job because you don't want to have a boss anymore. Because if you're starting a business where you're selling a product, you're going to have numerous clients to deal with on a daily basis.
Like basically numerous bosses almost.
Numerous bosses, or, now in an era of constant, like, feedback. People can blow you up on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook if they didn't get their order on time, or if they felt like they had a rude interaction. I was having an issue with these stamps that I ordered, and I couldn't get a hold of anybody. So I was like, you know what? I've seen people do this. I'm going to go on Twitter and see if they respond there. And they actually did. So I think then you're going to have numerous bosses. If you have a service-based business, then your clients are your bosses. And each customer, each person, or if you're just starting a podcast or you're starting a new blog or a new venture, a more creative venture like that, content creation, then, your readers or your subscribers, they're people that you're accountable to. So you're always going to be accountable to other people. So this isn't about, I'm going to leave and I'm going to do whatever I want, because that's not the case.
No, for sure. And it's tough. It's rough. It's not easy. You're going to have, a lot of times where you may even feel like you want to quit. But what I've experienced in those moments is when I've had breakthroughs, when I've had, these moments of adulation after, where it's like, yes, like the business is growing. We got this great client. We're getting interest to do other services that maybe we didn't think or see in the future. Yeah. And it's amazing. So just understand that, and go, if you are looking to do something like this, ask people. There's definitely a community of people who are, they call it outliers, people who go a different route, who do things that maybe aren't easy, and, appreciate people like that. Surround yourself with people like that. Surround yourself with people who are doing what you're doing, because, you have to have the growth mindset, and you also have to have like an abundance mindset. Don't think that you're competing with anybody, even with people who are doing the same service or similar services. There's so many times that we've collaborated with other agencies that do the same thing we do, but it's on a project where maybe they have an expertise where we don't have expertise, and we come together and we deliver something amazing. When you have that kind of mindset, the sky's the limit. When you have that kind of mindset, you're creating a network where sometimes even, I work with artists that have given me work that they maybe could have done themselves, but they understood that I was going to be able to deliver something better than they would have. Mm-hmm. So for them, even being able to reference somebody, it adds value to them and, to me, and it goes right back. When you create that, you're on this wavelength that you've created. If you try to stay not centered, if you try to push people out and compete with other people, it's just not going to be fun anymore. Mm-hmm. Part of what we do is amazing people we get to work with, amazing experiences that we have through watching people's businesses grow, working with other agencies, working with other artists, and just creating these relationships where people they eventually become colleagues, and then eventually, they're like low-key friends, and it's amazing to see what they're doing. And then when you do something that's amazing, to get that feedback from them, and it's honest and it's pure, and those are like some of the fringe benefits of running your own business. Yeah. And those kind of amazing experiences that you can't put any dollar amount on, and it's those kind of things that you're always going to remember and you're never going to forget. And if you constantly are on that wavelength and creating that attitude, it's just going to be amazing from now until, you decide to maybe sell your business, end your business, or maybe for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I think that's where you go back to the mindset, mm-hmm. Where you need to work on yourself. And if you, whatever like insecurities, which, we all have, so this isn't about, we're past this, like any insecurities or issues with ego that you have, they can get in your way of collaboration, because then you are going to approach people kind of in this way, right? And whether or not it's true, it's all going to be your perception. however you perceive the world is really going to have an impact. And that's something that I think was always important to me, but has become super important to me. Just earlier in the week, I did this thing called rapid transformational therapy, where it's basically like years of therapy. This is how we talk about it. Years of therapy condensed into a few hours, and you work on some of those like core issues of insecurity or feeling unloved that inevitably do impact how you interact with the world and how you run a business and how you interact with clients and interact with people that you meet, your peers and other colleagues. So I think that is like really, really important. So are you working on any other exciting collaborations? It sounds like you took what was your side hustle, made it your main job, and now you have other hustles, right?
Exactly.
Have you found time to work with any other artists, or are you thinking about people that are maybe a few years behind you now who you could work with?
Oh, I'm actually working with an artist based out of East LA. Her name's Gilda Nopal. We're actually working on a collaboration with her business, Gilda Nopal, and my other side hustle, which is my graphic art business.
At Native Decay?
Yeah, so we actually just did one of our first designs that we're going to be putting on some merchandise and releasing later this month at the Molcajete Dominguero in downtown LA, which we're really excited about. I'm really excited about working with her just because she's super excited about working with me. She's in the beginning of her design career. She's in her early 20s, and it's just so awesome to be able to talk to her and just give her positive feedback, give her constructive, not even criticism, but pass along the tutelage that was passed along to me by some of my mentors who've been designing and creating artwork for years, and to be able to pass it along to her without any ego. Something that she's told me is like, oh, I wish you're way better than I am, and oh my God, you're so like, your work is so great, which to me is like, yeah, you like to hear that. But what I told her was, hey, in regards to how long she's been doing it, I wish I was as good as she was at that time, and I could just see the potential in what she's doing and how hard she's working. She's doing a lot of things that I wasn't doing early on, and to be able to, be positive and have these conversations with her where after it's just like she's telling me, she's thanking me and like, hey, every time I talk to you, it's just like, it's great and it just motivates me. And to be able to do that is something that like I wasn't prepared for, and I wasn't prepared to understand how fulfilled it makes me feel. And to be able to do something like that without any kind of ego, without any, I'm not trying to get anything out of this. I just want this person to be as successful as I am, or maybe even more successful than I am, And those kind of things are the way I really feel that people should live, even not in business, but outside of life. I think so many times people are just so worried, like, oh, if I help somebody too much, they're going to take business, and I don't want them to be more successful than I am. When you're the opposite of that, you get so much. You get so much more back. I think there's a saying that you could never go poor if you always give. And I think when you're like that and you can pass things along that you may have gotten, and not with an ego of, oh, well, they have to earn it, or you know what, they haven't put in enough time, And I think a lot of times with anything, the chip on the shoulder is like, it's just going to close you off. I feel so very fortunate to even be able to collaborate with people, for people to even want to work with me. People see my work and they're like, oh, it's amazing, and like, oh, you should expect for people to want to work with you, but don't expect those kind of things. Be thankful for everything, have a lot of gratitude, and I think when you have that attitude and that perception in life, it's just like there's this whole landscape that's open to you, and there's all these amazing experiences that you're attracting to yourself. And I think, that's something that I didn't foresee, and I'm able to experience now, and I want people to experience that. On top of that, like I mentioned earlier, the Ultras 94, working with Chris Garay, who's an amazing photographer. Those are the two main projects I have right now, collaborations. But like always, I'm always looking for those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've learned, right? Like, and I think I've said this before. Like, even if you are in your job and you love it and you anticipate staying there, it always benefits you to take on additional skill sets, to take on new challenges, even within the structure of your work, to take on that additional project that you're going to learn something from. And also that's kind of what I think what keeps our growth, I think, keeps us a little bit excited, right? Like, we went to Tony Robbins earlier in the year, which we've talked about, and one of the things that he talks about is that there's like 9 or 10 things that motivate us as humans. And he talks about how, some of us are motivated by a need for security. And he talks about how people who are motivated by the need for growth and kind of embrace the growth process, not just the outcomes, right? So not just the, oh, look, like I'm on the cover of Forbes as like the self-made, self-rich or whatever. I don't believe anybody's self-made, but whatever. That's, you get my point, right? That those are the people that tend to just be happier because they're enjoying the process, right? Like they're not seeing so many setbacks as they're seeing like other opportunities or other ways to challenge yourself. And that, has made the difference. There's hard days. I really don't want to like underscore this because I think one of my issues with the landscape when it comes to entrepreneurship and hustle is that there's a lot of talking about try harder and like hustle and grind every day, but there isn't so much substantive like, okay, well, how do you actually deal with the hard days? Because there is going to be hard days, and these are like really challenging, like personally, financially trying moments that we've had in the past year. And there's been, mistakes that have been made. And I think there isn't enough people sharing that because the shame, impetus. There's shame. Obviously, I think that's a really good point. Actually, my guest next week is going to talk a little bit about like how we deal with shame or why we shouldn't have shame around certain things that happen to us in our professional trajectory. So stay tuned for that. But I think there isn't enough sharing of some of these like really hard moments and kind of like, okay, like this is what I did and this is how I messed up.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we all want to share the kind of the shiny pennies. Yeah,
which is kind of like Instagramming your side hustle or Instagramming your business when you're creating like a filter that everything is on the up and up and it's perfect. And I think then people expect that of themselves. And if you don't get it, then you start coming down on yourself and you start being really hard on yourself. Whereas, like Betsy, to touch on what she's saying, those hard days, expect them. Anytime there's massive growth or massive change, you're going to have turbulence no matter what. That's how science works. That's how anything works. When you go from one plane to another, you're going to have some kind of turbulence. Expect it. The turbulence is a good thing. That means that you're changing, you're evolving. Think about anyone who's ever gone to the gym. When you first start working out at the gym, what happens?
I don't talk to people like that.
What's the next couple days feel like? Yeah. It hurts. There's pain. But what happens after a month? What happens after 2 months? You don't feel that pain anymore. You're excited about going. You're excited about getting there, putting in the work. And all of that is earned. So just understand that. Don't have this expectation that it's going to be amazing and that it's going to be, it's going to be hard. There's going to be a lot of growth. There's going to be times of, like I said earlier, where you're going to want to quit, where things are looking bad, where it's super scary. But just know that in those moments, that's usually right around the time where things usually get better and you have these amazing experiences or these opportunities that you didn't foresee. And, things do start getting better and things are going to get better as long as you're putting in the time, as long as you're putting in the growth, as long as you're doing the things that you need to do to focus on yourself and focus on your business. It's all a process and it's going to start, taking off.
Yeah, learn to enjoy the process. That's going to be a key, right?
For sure.
So and it's something I've worked on, is like, don't see it as like I'm having a difficult day or this was such a bad day. Just be like, okay, today presented an opportunity for me to learn something and do something different tomorrow. Because that's the mindset too, right? Like if you're telling yourself, oh my God, I've just had the hardest 3 weeks of my life. Like that really fatalistic language, which I'm still working to to not practice. Mm-hmm. Like, because the more I've read about, the power of the law of attraction and all these other things, it's like that language, you're actually putting it out there. When I was little, I've been thinking about this. My mom used to say, like, not to say certain things out loud. Mm-hmm. She would say because the devil would hear you. Mm-hmm. But now I'm understanding it as like, don't like verbalize certain kind of language, because when you're using that language, you're framing your reality.
Yeah.
Like if you're saying like, I can never survive that, or I don't know how I'm going to get through these next few weeks. Like you're just making something that I am. And again, I'm not saying that whatever's happening isn't hard or isn't genuinely hard. I'm saying that you can make a decision on how you're going to talk about it and how you're going to frame it. That's going to make it either easier for you to deal with or harder for you to deal with.
Yeah. Be very purposeful what you're saying. Be very purposeful with how you look at things and your attitude. For example, where it's like, oh man, if you're initially thinking those are the 3 hardest weeks of my life, you could think about it the opposite way. Wow, those 3 weeks presented me with opportunity of growth. And here I am still standing. Here I am still, growing and evolving. And here I am, instead of being down, I'm up. I'm excited about tomorrow. I can't wait to turn this around and then look back at the tools that I've gained from these 3 testing really hard weeks. Mm-hmm. If you think about it in that way, then you're going to invite struggle. Shout out to Gary Vee. Recently he talked about, part of me, this is what he said, I wish a huge tragedy would happen to me, because then I would have to go back to the bottom and then work hard again and get that fulfillment of growth. He's like I almost kind of invite it, because he understands he's gone through it. So knowing that, with the kind of positive attitude that he has, the kind of constant growth and what he's been able to achieve, if you can implement that to yourself, every day is going to be exciting.
Yeah. I read, a friend of mine posted something and it said, or it was on a podcast maybe. No, I think it was a friend of mine who has a podcast. Okay. She said, you guys don't know this, but it's really early in the morning for me. But she said, you can focus either on the things you don't want, or you can focus on the things you do want.
Yeah.
And that to me is the work, like the internal work that I wake up with every day, because my mind tends to go a little bit on the negative sometimes. So it's like a process of like unlearning these habits that I've had my whole life, or a big part of my life. So I want to end on the last question. And my last question to you is, what is your goal for 2018? Or what is one of your goals for 2018? And it can either be something you want to do, or it could be something you want to change. And it can be like personal or professional, whatever you want.
For 2018, my goal is to have a number of designers working with Born in June, where I'm doing more of directing and creating more business to grow our business. Also to work with, continue to work with exciting brands who have, the growth mindset, and they're on the same, wavelength that we are in regards to constantly evolving, taking risk, and to continue to work with more and more brands like that, and to just continue to deliver amazing content, to continue to educate myself and ourselves to, grow the business. And just that, every day to get up with the same attitude, to just, kill it every day and make every day a masterpiece in everything that I do and we do.
And my goal for you weren't asking me, but my goal is to see more of your art. And actually, if you go on nativedecay.com, Josh has a line of pieces that he put out for fall 2017 that you can actually check out on his site.
Yes, please do.
Shameless plug for you. I think for me, everything you said, and I also want to continue to, this is personal, is to really be less afraid of being bold in how I talk about everything I do and how I talk about my content. So I think it's like a personal thing, like be less afraid. I think I've taken some steps, but be even less afraid, and really have those blinders on and just kind of like not look at what other people are doing or compare or anything, and just kind of really like keep going in that way. And we actually wanted to talk a little bit about, before we wrap up, about how we want to support other people who want to start their project in 2018. And we actually have an offer for new clients who are starting a business, a podcast, a side hustle, whatever it is. We want to pay it forward, because a lot of people have supported us on this journey. And so we're actually offering a rate for building your website or doing some of the basics of branding. And we can actually also do the foundations of your copywriting, because it's about how you show your work and also how you talk about your words using powerful language. So I want to wrap up. Thank you so much to my guest, Joshua Sandoval, for being on the show today. And actually, speaking of work-life balance, as we were recording, our son woke up, so Joshua stepped out. So that's just a little bit of how our life goes around here, working from home and being the parents of a toddler. As always, thank you for listening. And if you want to learn more about how we're working with clients in 2018 who want to start their hustle and really build their dream, you can actually visit my site, betsyaime.com, or you can always hit me up on Instagram at betsyaimec, or you can email me, betsy@borninjunecreative.com. Okay, gotta go. Bye. And there you have it. Thank you so much for joining us today. It means the world to me that you choose to spend your time with us. Don't forget to leave us a review or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or on SoundCloud. You can also sign up for the weekly newsletter, The Currently, on my site, betsyaime.com, or follow me on Instagram, betsyaime, as in cat. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks. In the meantime, let's continue making sense of the now together. Talk to you soon.